So Drew McGinty on education, everybody. Get yourself situated because we definitely want to hear what Mr. McGinty has to say about education.
Thank you so much, Christine, and everyone else. What a great turnout tonight. Thank you. The most important question that Democratic Party or primary voters have to ask themselves is, who can beat Patrick Meehan? Thank you. So, that is the most, now I get, oh, thank you. That is the most important question. Who can beat Patrick Meehan in the general election? That's the critical question. Because if he isn't beaten, he'll stay there for 2 more years, and we'll have somebody else continuing in the role, supporting Mr. Trump and all his policies. He's got to go. Now, the question, the next thing is we have to win. 17% of Republicans will have to shift over and vote for the Democratic candidate. And that's my campaign's very conservative estimates, and we're going after that. 17%, and the numbers show that. Now, we know it is possible because Admiral Sestak won, and he was the only one to win. He won two times out of the last 15 elections. 2 out of 15. That's a 13% success rate. That's really tough. Now, but he did win. And others have won recently. Secretary Clinton won. She's a moderate. Joe Sestak was a moderate. Katie McGinty, no relation, won the district, lost the state, but she's a moderate. It's going to take a moderate to win the district, a moderate to get people, the 17% of Republicans, to switch over and vote for that person. And I'm doing everything I can to find those 17+% every day of the week, and talk to people around the entire district. So I'll go on from there, and I'm going to say, talk a little bit about education. I went to LaSalle University in the early 80s. It took me, I was on the 5.5-year plan. I went to school part-time. I worked almost full-time during that whole time. The first 2 years, from like 18 to 20 years old, I was a police dispatcher, clerk, and jailer. I got to know a lot of things about individuals I never thought I'd ever know about them. And one of the key things was addiction was one of the big things I learned very much about, being the jailer side of that thing. How much it changes people from the nicest person you'd ever want to meet to somebody you're trying to hold down from not hurting themselves and others around them. Now, and also, after 2 years, I worked hard. I would work at computer stores, implementing accounting and financial systems for small and local, medium-sized businesses around the area. I often worked midnight to 8 shifts, went to school, then went to classes at 8 a.m. But I got through it. It took me 5.5 years, but I challenged, I kept up and got through it and got across the finish line. I had some debt afterwards that I had to pay off, but it was very manageable. Okay, but nowadays, a lot of the young people that are coming out of school, they have debt that they cannot manage. Okay, it's unmanageable. So what we need to do is we need to help them, and we need to help them in a common sense, economically responsible way. And we need to do things like preserving the programs that forgive the debt if you spend 10 years in public service. And that's a great program that was started a few years ago. We need to make sure that they have their loans can be adjusted to the lowest possible rate for the people that have these extraordinary loans now. And also, we need to do the same thing to guarantee future college students, and they have the opportunity to get the lowest possible rates on their student loans. Now, with that being said, college is not the only way. It's not to get to economic security. and I talk about this a lot. The skilled trades are excellent ways and paths to get to economic security for those who may not want to go to college, or people just, it's just not the right thing for them. We need to do a major renovation of our overhaul of our education system, starting with the metrics and how we measure what success means. And we've got to offer that just as equally. The skilled trades, we've got to emphasize it just as equally as the college education. Now, I look at, recently my wife and I had solar panels installed, the electric panels installed next to our solar hot water on our roofs about 6 months ago now. I had the opportunity, and I went out and I asked if I could speak to the two young gentlemen who were working on putting them up. I asked their supervisor, I said, well, I have to talk to them separately, I'm running for Congress, and he's like, oh, okay, that's fine. And so I talked to them, and I got a really good insight as to what they were doing. They were very honest and open and said, we had lots of problems growing up. We had one person was in and out of the juvenile justice system, but these 18, 19-year-old young men, they had just got out of college. They were just started an 8-year apprenticeship program, and they were making twice minimum wage, okay, with no debt, okay, and really just the basic, maybe not even less than the basic education. But to me, this was an excellent story to say these people now on a firm footing. They're not below the poverty line. They have a good job. They keep at it, and in 8 years they can keep making more and more and more. And maybe someday they'll open their business, or they'll have the economic security that they deserve and everybody deserves. So I am really even though I've gone to undergrad and I've graduated with a master's degree, and again I had 2 young children at home and work from home, stay-at-home mom. I struggled through it and got it because I thought it would be better for me. But I tell my kids now, consider the skilled trades. They're not, college education is not the only way. An equally good way is the skilled trades. So I wanted to give you a little bit of sense as to where I stand on education and how it really, and how part of green or clean technology kind of works into that. And I understand we're going to do questions. Is that okay? I want to spend, I don't want to talk too much. I want to leave time for questions. So we have one. Yeah. Oh, okay.
All right. Thank you, Drew. Appreciate that. Great. So, yeah, you can just stay right here, and I'll pass you the mic back if you can pry it out of my hand, because I love an audience. Okay. So our question, one of the questions we had for Drew from the audience. This is from you guys, so pay attention. It might be your question. That's exciting. What is your plan to keep us active? And I assume that means the people in the room. So, and don't say jumping jacks.
Okay.
All right. So what is your plan to keep us active?
That's a good question. I had so take a second for this, but I think I'll think it the same way that I keep active, and the reason, and it's probably the same reason you're all here tonight, is it is something that says I have to do this. I have to get out and make a difference. I can't take this, bickering, this things not getting done in politics. I need to get out and do something and make good things happen. And I think, I look at it, it's tough every day. It's tough every day to get out. It's Sunday nights, everybody's here is away from their families and friends, and it's good that keeping active. You have others that you can rally around and keep the spirit alive. But it is a tough fight, and you're going to have to do it day in, day out. But I don't think there's any other alternative. We have to do this. And the way I look at it is, I never want to be in 5, 10 years looking back and saying, I regret not going and trying and doing everything I possibly could to stop this and make things better for myself, my neighbors, my friends, my family, my children, and hopefully someday grandchildren. That my kids aren't here, so that's good. So keep going, and I think that it's coming from within, and you need everybody's support to keep you going. And I've heard things like it's And I try to support other candidates running too, and I'm you know, keep in there. Don't worry about what everybody else says. Just do what you need to do and fight.
All right, thank you, Drew. So that's great. One more question for Drew. What qualifications do you have that would allow you to be successful in Washington, D.C.? This is from Melanie. What qualifications do you have that would allow you to be successful in Washington, D.C.?
Okay, thank you. There's several. I won't get into all of them, but I think I have 30 years of business experience running very large, complex, global projects and programs in the IT space. And as we always say, it's like herding cats and getting people together. And my job has been, over the last 10 to 15 years, has more been the fixer and the problem solver, where I can get people together. I come into messes that are multi-million dollars over budget, years behind schedule, and they want, how do we turn this around? So and sometimes I wish I could just go in and start from the beginning and build the best thing at the beginning, but that's not really life most times. So there's that very hands-on experience in a variety of different ways from a business perspective that I've had to kind of get people to work together, find common ground. That is the one thing that's so important, is to find one thing, or at least one thing, get that done. Work with the other side, work with people who don't agree with you, and just move forward and get it done, and then start building one success after another success after another success. Soon you'll see success going up exponentially, and I've always seen that anytime I've been involved with that. So in general, those types of activities. Another thing is, for 10 years I worked volunteer work before I decided to run for office. I was involved with economic development and peacemaking efforts in Northern Ireland. And talk about a bunch of people who hadn't worked with each other, and there's a lot of fear, distrust, animosity, and we worked and tried to do different ways. And I was on this side of the Atlantic working with state legislators, all sorts of organizations to break down barriers and to kind of figure out how do we find ways to get the peace, to sustain the peace process that had a new life that began in 1998 in the Good Friday Agreement. So that is the second thing, and I'll finish it on the third and final thing for this. I look to say, when I decided to run, I said, what can I bring to the table to make a difference? What can I go in and say, okay, besides the general skills, the softer skills like leadership and problem solving and such, what can I go in there and really have a good understanding of where can I make a difference? And really that's healthcare. I have 22 years of combined healthcare experience. Now, I've been in IT the whole time, but it's amazing what what you see in the IT of how a business runs, because you see all the inner workings of what's going on. 13 years of that was in health insurance companies, 7 years in pharmaceutical, and 2 years in hospital or health systems. So to me, I can go in there with real ideas to kind of figure out how do we make incremental change. So basically, how can we go in, protect ACA, and then continue to improve it a little bit, starting a little bit at a time, work with the other side, work with the industries, a huge industry with many problems, both on the healthcare the payer side as well as the delivery side of the healthcare system. And where I focus mostly on the delivery, there's so many things we can make improvements on that I have things I've tried years ago and try to convince people to do, and they didn't happen. Maybe I'll have an opportunity to do some of those things. And what I learned from things is you have to, and I worked at a startup before that, and at some period of my time, and I learned you have to keep trying different things and trying new ways to figure out how to solve a problem. And but the only way that's going to work is if you get the other people who don't agree with you to kind of say, where can we find that common ground? Where can we fix a problem and help people? So with those three things, I think just some of the key things I wanted to bring out that I think I go in there, hit the ground running, and really try to make a difference for everybody in the 7th District and the country. So thank you. Thank you, everyone.